Hey, what's up, Blazer fans? Welcome to We Have a Take the What podcast. I am Tara Bowen Biggs, joined as always by Rose Harding. Hi, Rose.
Hi, Tara. How are you doing this morning?
Doing pretty good. Today is Superb Owl Sunday. So just I don't know. Do you have any plans to watch the Super Bowl at all?
No. This is a when I was little Rose, this was her favorite holiday because I watched a lot of football growing up because my dad watched a lot of football. And adult Rose is no longer practicing. So I go to like Costco or run errands that like typically I think are annoying to run because they're too crowded. Like this is the time that I do that. So I'm looking forward to running some errands and then also baking some chocolate souffle.
Ooh, that sounds good.
I've never made it before. This is going to be my first try. It could be horrible.
I mean, I don't think there's any way it can be horrible. It might fall, but even if it falls, it's basically a brownie. I
Yeah,
mean, so like you can't really go wrong.
that's true. And my husband does, he maintains, he's like, the worst brownie you've ever had is still really, really good.
It's a brownie. Right,
Yeah.
exactly. I used to be much more into the NFL than I am right now, and I just don't have time to track two leagues. And so I'm tracking NBA, a lot less than I have, frankly, recently. And then I have room for when Portland gets the WNBA team. That's where so that is where I am focused. And yeah, I don't even know I'm totally out of the loop where it comes to Super Bowl and what's going on with all the NFL drama.
Well, can I tell you what is happening in the Super Bowl this year? Because the only thing I know about the Super Bowl is like the little things I scrape from random people by like accidentally seeing their Super Bowl tweets in Blue Sky. And the lady that I was behind in the grocery store the other day, I heard her talking to the checker about the Super Bowl. And she said that our newly elected president is going to the Super Bowl. And then the person at the check stand asked her, when is the Super Bowl? And she said, I think it's on Saturday.
It's
This was
like,
like earlier this week. And it was like, I don't do the Super Bowl anymore, but I know what day of the week it's on.
yeah, Super Bowl Sunday.
That's right.
But that also just reminds me of Shaden Sharp asking when the dunk contest is.
Yes.
That was such a great nugget we got from Mike Richmond last week. That was so fun to
Yeah.
talk to Mike Richmond last week. So if you haven't listened to that, you should go back and get that amazing nugget that he
Yeah.
passed along.
100%. Mike has really excellent stories and nuggets. And I'm like, we need to have you back because I'm sure that there are some you did not drop that you're never going to drop because he's always doing like a new podcast every day. So he has to like cleanse his mind and
Yeah,
get new stuff constantly. And I'm like, no, I like to like bask in the past sometimes of just little nuggets that I'm going to hang on to for years.
for sure. He also had two songs that were this week actually played in the arena, which was amazing. It was Mike who talked about the George Foreman grill, right?
Yes. And he talked about the George Foreman grill and the Knight Rider theme.
Yeah, and both were played in the arena, which is
I'm,
like, very interesting.
I feel okay. So if you do the music for the arena and you listen to this podcast, please just like drop us a DM or something because like we just need to know.
Yes.
Is
And
that your way of saying you're listening to us? If so, I would really like Mr. Brightside to become an arena anthem because our jersey patch sponsor is Brightside Windows. And I think that we're the right age that we would lean into that.
okay, so I have a big confession to make, Rose, and you're going to be so disgusted with me about this.
Okay.
And so is everybody, and they're going to turn off the show. I don't know what song you're talking about.
You don't know Mr. Brightside?
No.
By the Killers?
Well, is that one of the ones that you suggested?
Well, I suggested
You suggested a
a
killer
different
song.
Killers song.
See, I'm
But
so not musically up to date that you keep talking about Mr. Brightside, and I'm like, oh my God, now it's like I've let it go too long. I have to pretend that I know what it is, but I'm being honest with you.
okay.
2025 is all about honesty and connecting with people on like a real level, not like a fake level. And so I don't know what song that is. I need to listen to that song. I will do it after this podcast.
Okay. Well, just so you know, talked about this before. We're not of the same generation, so I think it's okay that you don't know the song Mr. Brightside. If we were the same age, I would be like, where were you in all of college? Were you never in a bar ever? That said, Mr. Brightside is was like a really, really, really popular song in like my 20s. Like it was a song that people would get drunk and like scream at the top of their lungs. And I don't know why it persists as one of those songs where I'm like, this has legs as an arena anthem, even though it is about something that's like a toxic relationship. But
Oh. But like just the chorus of it, like they could have like whoever like has an outstanding play of the game, they could play Mr. Brightside and he could be Mr. Brightside of the game. It's a whole branding thing. It makes more sense than the golden shopping cart.
oh my God, I know the golden shopping cart is bleh. It's fine, sure, golden shopping cart. Fred Meyer, that branding
Huge fan of
works.
Fred Meyer. Huge
Yes,
fan over here.
yes. I don't like how they represent like every food twice in their store because some of it's considered natural and some of it's not. But like that's a topic for another time.
But yeah, the golden shopping cart feels a little forced, but I could see after I listen to Mr. Brightside and the chorus, I'll be like, "Oh my gosh, that's perfect. It would be a great somebody does something great, play that."
I think I thought of it partially because you know how like the White Stripes became like an arena anthem, and that's
Okay.
like a more modern arena anthem because like I don't know, like when I was in college, I was like, oh, there's like all these like it's like a lot of weird rock songs from like 20 years prior that became like stadium anthems. And I
Hmm.
remember like the Oregon Ducks marching band playing like, gosh, I don't even remember, like Alice Cooper or something. I don't even know. But and then the White Stripes became an arena anthem that like every fandom thinks it's theirs, but it's just everywhere. Um, but yeah, Mr. Brightside could be that, and it could be ours because of Brightside Windows.
Hmm.
And there was like the Killers were probably the best of the bands at that time. Like there was like a bunch of bands with the Killers, the Vines, the Hives, the whatevers,
Hmm.
the Strokes. Um, but yes, we should make it happen. We're like the right age, like people who are in their like late 30s, early 40s. Those people can afford to go to basketball games now.
Yeah. I was thinking because in my choir we are singing a version of Mr. Blue Sky, which is an
Mm,
electric light orchestra. And so every time I hear Mr. Brightside, I think Mr. Blue Sky. And now here we are singing Mr. Blue Sky, which could be another interesting thing because it's so weird how the Blazers have leaned so heavily into so in the arena, if you go to the games, they do like the, you know, the video at the beginning and it leans
right.
so heavily into the rain and doom and gloom. And it's just like maybe we could have something a little more uplifting and we could switch to Mr. Blue Sky.
Yeah, like the storm stops.
Mm-hmm.
Although I will say, so we tried to talk, I forget who we talked about this with on this podcast, but we talked about the Rip City Runs Deep thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I didn't,
You weren't a huge fan, I think, at the beginning of it.
well, no, not really. And here's the thing, I didn't realize that they were leaning into it as like roots run deep.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I think of like runs deep, like if you think like Stillwater runs deep, like that's about a body of water.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that always bothers me in that intro is like it's guys looking in a puddle, which is not deep. A puddle is not deep. Like stick him in front of a lake or
Yeah.
something, but like a
Crater
puddle
Lake, it's sitting right there.
right there. That's right. And then it's like not even Portland centric. It's like more Oregon inclusive. But
Mm-hmm. We've done a lot of good work already this morning, Rose.
they should just call us and we could fix some of this stuff.
Okay, so we chose on purpose to be by ourselves today because this is the first podcast that we were doing after the trade deadline. And before we get into like what the Blazers did at the trade deadline, I was reminiscing about other trade deadlines or other big trades that the Blazers have made, and I a couple of memories of like I knew exactly where I was when a trade came through or exactly like how I felt when it came through. So I was wondering if you have any memory similar to that.
I do. It's okay that it's not a trade deadline trade though.
Oh Oh yeah, sure.
Okay.
Mine happened to be, I'll tell you mine, and they happen to be trade deadline related, but like I was just thinking about also just like trades in general and like how we feel and like what we're doing and how much do we remember when they come through.
So I'll say the one that I remember really, really vividly is, and I don't remember where I was, but I remember how I felt and I remember what I was thinking about because when we traded Nick Batum, it was like, so it was like, it was a summer trade and it was like June before the trade deadline, like like late June before the trade deadline, before the not the trade deadline,
For
excuse
the
me, like the
draft.
no, before like the like the free agency because free agency
Right, yeah,
starts
yeah.
like in early July,
Yeah.
and this was like June 25th or something.
Hmm.
Um, Nick Batum got traded the summer of 2015, and it was like after we'd kind of run that core back a couple of times, like trying to see if like that, that Dame, it was like Dame, Wes, Nick, LaMarcus, and Robin Lopez were the
Hmm.
core. And it was the summer, if you recall, we went into with LaMarcus in free agency.
Right, that was the big, is LaMarcus gonna stay LA?
Yes. And there was some rumblings at that point. And when we traded Nick, I was like, oh my God, it's over.
So is that what you thought? Did you think,
That's
oh my gosh, okay.
I thought, oh my God, it's really over because Wes was a free agent. He was about to be a free agent, and LaMarcus was a free agent, and they were trading Nick. And I
Hmm.
knew that Dame would be here, but I was like, oh my God.
Hmm.
And like we had had some drama around Nick before because remember when he was a restricted free agent, he'd signed with I think Minnesota, and then we matched. And so we'd already had some drama about that and then this was like, oh, we're trading him. And it
Yeah.
was, we were trading him for Gerald Henderson and, um,
Sweet, sweet Noah
and Noah
Vonleh.
Vonleh. That's right. And I was like, oh, but so Gerald Henderson was like, he felt like a vet who was getting tossed in there. And what we really were trading him for was Noah Vonleh.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, we're going to go young. And Noah Vonleh was a power forward.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh. And so then I felt sick. Like everything after that, I felt like I was just like coping about like what I really thought was going to be happening.
Hmm. I think for that, I put my head in the sand. It was like, I'm not even going to think about it until LaMarcus actually says that he's gone. I'm just like, I'm going on the assumption that he's here until he says that he's gone. And in retrospect, that was pretty foolish of me. It was, the writing was pretty much on the wall, like as like what you were saying. But I just remember thinking until he's gone. But I also remember that that was when it was pretty soon after I'd started writing for Blazers Edge. And so I remember immediately as soon as all of the trades that came started coming, like that's when I think, isn't that when Ed Davis came in as well? I don't know, I have to double check on that. But because there was this massive shift, there were all these new guys that were coming in. And that was the first time where I got excited about learning who all these new people were.
Mm.
And so I was not happy that LaMarcus was leaving or that any of those guys who we'd become attached to were leaving. But I do remember feeling the first time where I was like, oh, there's a whole bunch of guys that I didn't really even know anything about. Now they're on our team. And so I guess that was my way of coping with the loss.
I did just look it up. That was the year that we signed
Okay.
Ed Davis.
Okay.
We signed
Yeah.
it, yeah. So he signed in July of 2015. Um, yeah, it was weird though because we had such a stable starting five up to that point,
Hmm.
remember? And it was
Hmm.
like, but that was like a mega action year where it was just like, oh, we're turning over.
Yeah.
Like a lot of things turned over at that time. And I mean, remember we had done that like that they did that Aaron Aflalo
Well,
experiment.
that was my one of my like most memories about trades that happen. Like one of the ones where like I remember where I was. I was in the parking lot at New Seasons and I was listening because we used to get all of our information from the radio at that
Right.
time, right? Oh, that's where I got my information. We could read it in the newspaper the next day, but if we wanted like breaking news, Twitter was there, but it wasn't quite the same as it is became at its heyday. But it was really the radio. So if I was driving around. So anyway, I heard it on the radio and I remember being so upset because it was Aaron Aflalo and Alonzo Gee for Will Barton, Victor Claver, and Thomas Robinson. And it wasn't because like I was worried about like the future of the franchise, da 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 da. But I just loved Will Barton
Yeah.
so much.
Oh my God, he was the
I was
best.
so bummed. And at the time,
Was that 2015? Was that trade deadline
that was this,
2015?
yes, because remember
Yes.
Aaron Aflalo was going to be the guy who put him over the top, and they were gonna,
Yeah.
he was going to take him to the promised land, and then he got injured, and then Wes got injured, and then everything just kind of fell
No, I
apart.
thought, yeah, that's right. Because he was starting, no, because he started, no, Wes got injured first because he was starting in Wes's spot.
Oh, okay, he took his, okay.
Yes, because that was the year I think that Wes blew his
Right,
Achilles.
it was the Achilles year. So that
Yes.
happened first. Okay, I can't remember.
Yes.
I
And then he was starting in a spot, and then Aaron Aflalo went down, and we were like, ugh.
hmm
Like,
Yeah, and I loved I loved Will Barton and Thomas Robinson, just their high flying. There was and Victor Claver too. He was
yeah.
so I definitely remember being in the parking lot of New Seasons when that happened. And the other one that I remember like where I was when it happened was when we traded Mason Plumlee for Yusuf Nurkic and a first round pick. And again, I was in the car. And like my very first podcast host, Joe, she texted me and I saw it come like I just like saw a thing come through and she was like, I told everybody stuff was going to happen at the deadline. And I was like, what's this? And so I pulled over to get off the road very responsibly. So I wasn't texting and driving. And went through a what are those? What's the coffee place where they basically jump in the car with you? The
Dutch
drive.
Brothers,
Yes, Dutch Brothers. I
Dutch
pulled,
Bros. I think it's
yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
I pulled over to a Dutch Bros and they were like, "Hey, how you doing?" And I was like, "The Blazers just made a trade." And I was like just unloading on this poor Dutch Brothers person about what the Blazers had done. So I definitely remember that one coming through and I clearly remember being super excited about the pick. At that time, it was very exciting that we traded Mason Plumlee for a pick and also Yusuf Nurkic. And everybody thought the pick was going to be the thing. And the expectations at that time for Nurkic were pretty low and didn't see him being as impactful as he ended up being. Kind of a similar situation to what he was in just
Yeah,
this week.
that's right. I remember that Mason Plumlee trade too, because I remember being super surprised, I think. Um, because like you're right. I don't think people because he
That
was
was
because Nurkic at the
2017, by the way.
yeah, Nurkic was a backup. So like
Hmm
Nurkic was backing up Jokic kind of I think that was like back in the early days where there was a hot second where we weren't sure who was the starting center.
Yeah, well, Yusuf Nurkic, I believe, was taken first, and then Jokic came the second year. So it was, and Jokic was like a
Hmm.
second round pick. So it was like, well, Jokic will back up Nurkic. Then it was like, uh-oh,
Yeah,
guess
that's
not.
right. Right. And the perception was that Nurkic like was like not happy, not playing well, not feeling appreciated. And so they were like, just get this guy off my team. Which I
hmm
think is maybe what happens. It's like it feels like a theme that happens with him is that as soon as people like lose him as like his either his attitude or the where he like I think like doesn't see what value he adds, like
hmm
that relationship just it's a chasm. Um and people get off him. They're like, okay, now we got to trade him. Um, I don't think that's what happened here. I think that maybe that's why we have still like feel kind of well, I'll just say
hmm
speak for me. I feel still a little bit romantic about Nurkic because I think he still had a good run here, and he left here more so because the reason why they brought him here was no longer the direction of the team,
hmm
and so it was we like felt very natural that as soon as they realized that Dame wasn't going to be here, that Nurkic wouldn't be here either. Um, but like Phoenix just did the exact same thing with him. And it was so great though when he came in though, because like, do you remember how happy he was to be here?
hmm
He was so happy. And like, I'll say I was sad when we traded Mason Plumlee, which really speaks to how much I can talk myself into a guy if I'm around him long enough.
No, I think you do. I think you and are not alone that Mason Plumlee has had an impressively long, steady career. You mentioned that on
Mm.
Blue Sky the other night. And so I don't think it's weird that you talked yourself into Mason Plumlee. I think we all knew that Mason Plumlee was a solid player.
Yeah, he's consistent and like being consistent in this league is one, it's like the hardest thing to do, I think, to be
Hmm.
a consistent player and people know what they're getting with you. And two, like it's not common. It's
Hmm.
hard to be consistent. And Mason Plumlee has been consistently pretty okay for a very long time.
And he's also I've never ever heard anything about him similar to like what we've heard about Nurkic in a couple of different places. What we heard
Mm-mm.
about DeAndre Ayton. He's the kind of player who like just fits in and doesn't need as much handling like as we've seen guys like Nurkic and maybe Aiton and some other people who need to understand what their role is, need to have their role be appreciated and,
Hmm.
need that like outward um uh appreciation more so. Mason Plumlee just kind of shows up and does his thing and another team might need him and so they pick him up.
Yeah, he feels like a real professional vet.
Hmm.
He knows exactly what he's there to do. He's got a role. He does it, shows up, punches in, punches out.
Yeah.
Sometimes he goes to a different city to do it. And
And he's not like wrapped up in the emotion that some of the other more mercurial players that
mm,
we've had on the team um,
yeah, he was
get
easy.
up to. Hmm.
He was an easy personality, and I do remember him kind of leaning into like Portland too. He like tried to be real. I mean, I think at that time being on social was more of a thing than it is today. More players were doing it, and he like really, I felt like he was really leaning into being in Portland. I remember he like instead of moving to the suburbs, he moved into an apartment like downtown or something.
Oh, was he
He like
downtown?
I think he was downtown. He like wasn't he would because he walked to the arena there was a game that was canceled when he was here due to snow, and he like walked to the arena from his apartment
Okay.
and like stood and took a picture of himself in front of the arena. And because he just lived downtown. Um and I remember when he made like a goodbye post. He like posted a picture of himself standing in front of like this like huge mural on the side of a building or something in Portland. And I
Hmm.
was like, oh, this is sort of nice. Like, I don't know. Not everybody really likes being in Portland because we're not the vibe for everybody, but I appreciate the guys that like come through and
Hmm.
want to appreciate what's nice about our city.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed Mason Plumlee's tenure here. I was very upset when he came because I loved Rondé Hollis Jefferson so much, and I was
Mm.
like for like 8 minutes a huge fan of Rondé Hollis Jefferson, and then he was immediately traded, and we got Mason Plumlee instead, which is fine. And we did later get to have a cup of coffee, as they say, with Rondé Hollis Jefferson. Uh, but I love one of the things I always like to think about with Mason Plumlee is that he was in that game Duke versus Lehigh
Oh,
where
yes.
Lehigh upset Duke.
That's right. And then he was coming to a team with
Hmm.
CJ on it.
Yeah. And that was a time where that was what Neil Olshey was telling us. I'm, trying to find people who are all like around Damian Lillard's age. And we
Hmm.
want to like all these guys who are like on the same timeline. And I went and I looked and I compared everybody's college schedules to see who played each other because they were like super contemporary and most of them all played in college. And so
Hmm.
there were a lot of fun games and rivalries, like because like Alan Crabb was at USC, Damian was at Weber State, CJ at Lehigh, Duke. We had somebody else I think from Duke. Gerald Henderson was at Duke, but they were in a
Gerald
different thing.
Henderson was a Duke.
But anyway, I thought it was really fun that they had all of these college matchups against each other. That is not the case anymore because again, we have so many guys who didn't play in college
Yeah.
that they hadn't really gone head to head with each other very often.
Yeah, that's right. And also like I'll say like there was like there's a lot of guys from like the college like pedigreed programs just bouncing around the league
Hmm.
and I don't know what it is now, but like now there's more international guys. Now there's more like guys come from way more places than just like
Yeah.
Kentucky and Kansas and Duke and North Carolina.
Yeah. Yeah. It was another like little sweet spot,
Yeah.
where we had like this precious little time where they all like played against each other when they were in college. So that this also got me thinking, since Yusuf Nurkic is one of the people that got traded at the deadline, I went and I took a look at like I don't know ESPN's page of like all of the trade deadline trades to find out where all our Blazer cuties who got traded ended up.
Hmm.
So here's the list that I came up with, and if I missed any, you or whoever is listening can correct me, but here's the ones that I found. So Nurkic, of course, got traded to Charlotte. Zach Collins kind of lost in all this stuff, ended up going to Chicago.
Right, because he went there in one of those in the
One of those big
The
ones.
De'Aaron Fox like 4 or 5 team trade.
Yeah, yeah. So he's in Chicago now. Atlanta Hawks traded Cody Zeller. Don't forget, he played for the Blazers, so he's, I think, by my definition, is a Blazer cutie. Um,
Fine, he can be a Blazer cutie.
yeah, so we were talking about this before. We're always talking about trying to like define Blazer cutie. And in my opinion, a Blazer cutie is somebody who played for the Blazers and then left and has done nothing wrong to remove that designation and maybe hasn't done something to make him a legend, but is just somebody who played for the Blazers. It's kind of like an alumni. It's kind of just like a little more endearing term than alumni.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
How bad did this thing have to be that they did to make them not a Blazer cutie?
I don't know.
Because I'll say, I don't think Norman Powell's a Blazer cutie.
Yeah, he hasn't done anything bad.
He hasn't done anything bad. I just don't think he's
I
a Blazer
know.
cutie. He's nobody that I'm like, oh,
I know.
he was great.
I
I
don't
nothing that.
if I'm gonna stick with my matrix, then I would have to
Mhm.
say that he's a Blazer cutie, but he doesn't emote strong Blazer cutie vibes.
Okay. He's
How's
not like
that?
he okay. I think that there are four. So I was like, I don't think all ex-Blazers that haven't done anything wrong are Blazer cuties, but
Okay,
that's me because
that's fair.
it has to be somebody that or something about them that I miss.
Oh, okay.
Like I like something that I miss about them, even if it's not about the way that they played here or anything like that. There's something about them like, oh, that was nice.
He had really cute dogs that had their own Instagram account.
Okay, well, they can be Blazer cuties then. Norman
Okay.
Powell's dogs, welcome, Blazer cutie status. We miss you.
That is totally fair. Okay, so Cody Zeller got traded to Houston. He was on the Hawks.
Okay.
Cam
I didn't know he
Reddish.
was on the Hawks. I just want to say that I didn't know he was on the Hawks.
I discovered that at some point this season. I do remember that. So Cam Reddish, definitely a Blazer cutie in my book. He was
Cool.
part of the Dalton Connect trade with Charlotte. Have we found out if that's actually gone through
No,
yet?
no, it's gone.
Oh, it's
It
completely gone.
disappeared.
They have
No,
to
the
unwrap it,
yeah,
undo it.
I think that they say that I think that what happened is that what's his face? Mark Williams, I don't know, the
Yeah,
other Williams with health problems, he
yeah,
failed his physical.
right. But the team can still.
I think they rescinded it. I think they announced yesterday
Did
that
they
they
actually
rescinded it.
rescind it? I thought it just said that it was in jeopardy, but so it was rescinded. Oh well. So I'm not sure where Blazer Cutie Cam Reddish is going to end up.
Which also, by the way, has some impact on our other Blazer cutie, Yusuf Nurkic, because that trade did go through.
Hmm.
And so theoretically, Charlotte acquired Nurkic to play for Mark Williams.
I wonder what's going to happen with that. Well,
I don't know.
we don't have time to think about that now. Maybe we'll
Charlotte's a
talk about
team
that
that
next week.
I like to not think about Charlotte.
Um, on February 1st, Utah, I think it was Utah, traded Drew Eubanks and Patty Mills to the Clippers. Would you like to
Saw that.
know how many Blazer cuties are now on the Clippers? They
Like
have
half of their team is Blazer
they have
cuties.
Chris Dunn, which don't forget he was on a 10-day.
Yeah, that's a Blazer cutie.
Drew Eubanks, definitely a Blazer cutie.
Yes.
Norman Powell,
Not a Blazer cutie.
Derek Jones Jr., definitely a Blazer cutie.
Yes.
Patty Mills, definitely a Blazer
Yeah.
cutie. And Drew Eubanks. Half of their team are Blazer cuties.
That's right. And that they have, I mean, honestly, they remain the Blazers. Like
Yeah,
it's
they just
just
got two more.
right. And they've like traded a bunch of guys away. Like they used to have other guys. Like Nick Batum
Mhm.
was on that team, Robert Covington was on that team, like Mason Plumlee was on that team. Like,
Wait, Batum is still on that team too?
is he?
Wait,
I
okay, I
thought
have their
Batum
roster up. Okay,
no,
Marshawn
Batum, I think
Beauchamp, James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, Amir Coffey, Chris Dunn, Trenton Flowers, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Jordan Miller, Cam Christie, Drew Eubanks, Kobe Brown, Kai Jones, Norman Powell, Nicholas Batum,
okay, so
Ivica
Nick Batum is
Zubats,
still there.
Derek Jones Jr., and Patty Mills.
Jeez.
So there you go. I'm looking at their coaching staff just in case they have any.
Can I
No,
tell you
not
something
anymore.
that's a little petty of me?
Yes.
If I saw a team that had that many former Blazers on it and they went and won a championship, I would hate them more.
Oh, really? You wouldn't claim it?
Well, no,
I
I
would
mean,
a
I would,
thousand percent claim
oh,
it.
I would be like, you would in your big market and all your money and like with your flouting your NBA privilege, go win with these guys that we couldn't make win here.
Oh no, I'd say you had to come and get half the Blazers roster in order to pull this off. You're welcome. That is, I deserve a ring for that.
Stolen valor or whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, so that's those are all the Blazer cuties that I could find who were traded. And so if I missed any that were part of the trade deadline excitement, that was trade deadline excitement for everybody else
It
except for the Blazers.
it sounds like a lot of Blazer cuties who are 6'10" white men or taller got traded.
Oh,
Oh,
Zach Collins, Cody Zeller, Drew Eubanks. Wow, you're
Yusuf
right.
Nurkic. Although I think Drew Banks in his defense is only 6'9".
Oh yeah. But he has the heart of a 6'11" guy.
That's true. That's true.
Wow, that's funny. I hadn't thought about it that way.
Oh, but Cam Reddish. Cam
Hmm.
Reddish, and also a very much a Blazer cutie.
Uh-huh.
So no
Definitely.
qualms there. Well, shoot, that's a lot of guys on the move. It was like a really mega actiony
Yeah.
trade. I
Were
mean, not for
you
us.
right? Were you like like for me the trade deadline, like you said it on the podcast that you didn't think much was going to happen in the trade deadline. I kind of really didn't think so either.
Hmm.
Um and not because I was like uh, how can I say this? I'm not really disappointed in what the Blazers didn't do. Um,
No.
because I feel like they're even though they held on to some vets, they are acting like a team that is looking at the future. Because what's the point of just trading some vets for some other vets, when we know that we are trying to look towards the future? But so anyway, I didn't even pay attention. I was like 5 days leading up to the trade deadline. Everything I got from Bleacher Report was about whether or not Golden State was going to go for Jimmy Butler or Kevin Durant. And I was like, did I somehow, somewhere, like accidentally click that I wanted notifications about this team? Because that is the last team that I want any notifications about whatsoever. And yet, every 10 minutes, the Golden Warriors are considering trading for Kevin Durant. The Golden Warriors don't want Kevin Durant. The Golden Warriors want Jimmy Butler. Oh, they're not going to trade for Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler doesn't want to. It's just like, oh my Lord. So I turned it all off. I didn't pay any attention to it. And I just waited until afternoon on the trade deadline. And it was like, oh, interesting. And it was so peaceful. It was so peaceful. I loved it.
I think that so with there were we talk about how there was a golden age of NBA Twitter
Hmm.
and that was a time where we got like tons of leaks, tons of tweets about this and that and
Woj.
what yes, Woj was there and he was like the captain of that ship and I think that like what I have figured out about myself is yes, being on Blue Sky makes it harder to follow those things, but do I want to follow those things? Maybe I have retired from following NBA trade deadline rumors along with Woj. I don't need this anymore because quite frankly, like if I'm being honest, Tara, we're never, ever, ever going to have an NBA trade deadline or off-season moment like the 2015 year where we got everything where we got that Clippers drama
Oh
with
God.
DeAndre
That
Jordan.
was
Is he gonna go to Dallas? Is Mark Cuban driving around Dallas trying to find DeAndre Jordan's house? Is Chris Paul and Blake Griffin locking him in a room until
putting the
he,
chair in front of the door.
yeah, until he submits to be coming back to the Clippers? Like,
That was
we're
the
never
golden
going to have
age.
that again. And me chasing that is not going to make it happen again. I am so sad that we'll never have that again, but also I'm really glad that we did have that offseason because that was like, I mean, for NBA Twitter, that's probably like the golden age peak moment of all of NBA Twitter was that offseason. It was wild. And I don't know. I've retired. The rumors are bad. The rumors this year, like you were saying, they were all bad and like they were low quality rumors trying to get people to click on stuff that wasn't real. And I was like, I don't need the rumors anymore. I have that. I have the summer of 2015. That's enough for me.
I love that. I'm gonna adopt that philosophy as well. Like we had it, we have to stop like chasing things. Oh, that's what happens is like something really great happens, and then all of a sudden we chase it, chase it, chase it, chase it to try to make it happen again. You know what, Rose? It's kind of like us having
Social
a
media play
social.
of the year.
Exactly. We're chasing I'm trying Jennifer. And this is just not the world where I don't know. It's not the world that I'm trying Jennifer is going to happen. Something else will happen that we don't expect, and that's what makes those scenes exciting.
Yeah, you can't keep going back to the same gag. You got to look for a new gag.
Hmm.
New gag is going to hit great. The old, but even if you found the old gag again, it wouldn't be as good as the first time you had it.
Mm-mm.
So yeah, I feel totally fine letting NBA trade rumors go. I had my moment where I followed them and where they like totally would ruin or make my day, and I just don't care anymore. And also, like you, I didn't really expect much to happen. So
Hmm.
like, what am I chasing for the Blazers exactly? I'm like a trade, but not just a trade for trade's sake. Like
Hmm.
I I want them to make a move if the right one presents itself, and I want them to not make a move if it's the wrong one,
Yeah.
because can be just as harmful for your franchise as not making a good move. So like, and I don't have the information to evaluate whether or not that's happening or not.
Right, and we don't have any say in it. Well, that's the other thing. So just so back up and clarify for people who are listening, the the DeAndre Jordan Twitter thing was a free agency thing, not a trade thing, but
Right.
and we know that. But it was like representative of like the types of like madness that would happen on Twitter during these deadline things. I mean, remember that like you could just see how exhausted Woj would be at the end of the trade deadline, and he would just be like 15 other trades happened. He'd be like tweeting, 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 and then they hit at a point where he'd be like 15 other trades happened. We'll have the we'll have the thing later.
But the thing is, like the rumors at that point on Twitter were like higher quality than the rumors that we hear today. You
Yes.
knew that there was like if also Woj, I'll say like just he just never really led us astray in terms of like something that had no legs.
Except for the one time he got something wrong. I remember this. This is another. I remember where I was. I was at a Pickles game, and he tweeted 2 years before it actually happened that the Blazers were signing Mario Hazonia, and then it
Oh,
got
I do.
so another free agency thing. But it's. I remember that. I remember going. And then it just and I'm looking for it again because I was like, "Who's this Mario Hazonia guy?" And then it disappeared, and he got it wrong.
You know what though? I think that that was Woj coming back from the future into the past.
Hmm.
He was time traveling. That's how he knows. That's how his rumors were always good because like he knew which ones were going to coalesce and which ones weren't. And Mario Hazonia, he was like, okay, fine. I like tweeted that one out a little too early, guys. Sorry, I've got my years wrong.
Yeah, that is so that is such a good point though that you've been making about the high quality of the rumors that we would get because now they're just so twisted up in the clicks. Whether or not it's free agency or trade deadline, it's just get clicks to go read the article about, these rumors as opposed to like the direct knowledge from the guy who's going to tell us what he knows and then write the article about it later.
Yeah, and if I'm being totally honest, there's also an ick factor for me around the fact that like NBA has gotten so in bed with gambling
Mm.
that like fake rumors can drive odds on certain types of betting. And I'm like, this just all feels like mega ick to me. And I don't participate in sports gambling, and I don't want to participate in these crappy, low quality rumors. I'd rather just see it all play out when it plays out.
Yeah, yeah.
That's where I am. I'm also older and I have less room for that in my life. I fill it with other things.
During the pandemic, I placed one bet and it took like a whole team of people to help me figure out how to do it. And it was
Oh my
pathetic.
goodness. What did you bet on?
I can't even
You don't even
remember.
remember.
I can't even remember. It was so anticlimactic. Okay, but we were talking about the Blazers' inactivity at
Yes.
the trade deadline and how we sort of kind of knew that was going to happen. I look at it as kind of like, you know how, maybe somebody will invite me to the dance. The possibility is there, but it's not really very likely. And so, I'll still go to the dance anyway, but like, I didn't get invited. Or like I am
You'll go
applying
with
for,
your friends.
yeah, I'm
Go with the
applying for,
same friends you always go to with.
yeah, yeah, or I'm applying for a scholarship, and I have a chance. I could get awarded the scholarship, but there's a lot of other people who also want the scholarship, and I wasn't chosen this time. It happens.
Yeah.
I don't see it as a disaster. And like I was saying about like the young guys that the Blazers are building around now, like the only thing that would make sense to get in return would be young players or picks, and that's
Mhm.
not what was being moved. That's the only thing that would have been responsible for the team to do would be to get the young. Although they did get a young player. They signed, okay, I have his name, CD Sissoko to a
Hmm.
two-way.
That's right, because we waive
Taze
Tajay
Moore.
more. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the only movement is a two-way contract.
So they did something.
They did do
For
something.
those who wanted something to happen, they did something.
I have a hard time like being super mad at my front office about what trades did or didn't happen because I don't know what was offered.
Hmm.
Like like how can I be mad at the front office if I don't know what was possible. Like, I think that when Joe Cronin did his like media availability, he made some comment like, "Oh, we were trying to work on some things and they didn't pan out or whatever." And like, I bet that happens to a lot of like teams. Like, you work on something and it doesn't work out. And maybe it's for the best. We don't know. Maybe he was gonna trade Jeremy Grant for a vending machine filled with soda. Like, I don't know. Like
Hmm.
you don't even know what kind of offers were out there for certain guys. And so it's hard for me to be mad that they didn't take a deal to get somebody off of our roster when I don't know what the other half might have looked like. And we don't even know who they might have been trading. What if like the kinds of things that they had in the work was trading somebody that we really wanted to keep? I don't know. I just like there's so much unknown information. It's hard for me to be mad or sad or whatever by it. And I just have to either trust that the front office is doing something that is good for my team, or I don't trust that. And that's really what all those feelings are like wrapped up in is do I trust them to be doing something that is good, or do I not know? In
Hmm.
which case, if I don't know, I'm comfortable reserving my feelings about it to, I don't know, sort themselves out later. But, like this is a perfect example, actually. Do you remember the summer where we were trying to sign Chandler Parsons?
Yes.
And everyone was so upset that we didn't sign Chandler Parsons. And everybody thought he was coming here, that he was definitely coming here. Chandler Parsons is going to be a Blazer. And then at the last second, he became a Grizzly, and everybody was so pissed about that. Like it was last year where he told the story about that on a podcast now that he's retired. Or I don't know if he's retired, but he's not playing in the NBA.
Yeah, he's done.
And he was talking about how the reason why he signed with Memphis was because he was going to fail a physical and with in Portland, and Portland was going to be squeamish about him failing a physical, and that trade wouldn't go through, and then he would be like black marked all across the NBA as a guy who failed a physical, and it was going to hurt his money long term. So he needed to go in and sign with the Grizzlies, who are not going to fail him on this physical and not going to be squeamish about his past injury history. And lo and behold, he went to Memphis, and then he barely played because he was injured the whole time.
Hmm.
Why did people waste so much time being angry about that? I'm thrilled he wasn't a Blazer. And it took a long time for that information to come out. And
Hmm.
so until I know all the information, I don't really know how to feel about anything that did or didn't happen because you never know. There's tons of stuff that you don't know about.
Hmm. Yes to all of that. By the way, did you know that I have a Chandler Parsons yoga mat that I got when I attended the Grizzlies game in Memphis?
A yo a
Yes, I
yoga
have a
mat?
Chandler Parsons yoga mat, which I actually, so when my husband and I went to Memphis to watch a game, we spent some time in Memphis and then we spent a few days in Nashville. And while we were in Nashville, we went to a Grizzlies watch party where I won a Chandler Parsons yoga mat that has his face on it that was given out at Grizzlies games and nobody wanted them, so they had all these extras to give away at the watch party. I just had it
Oh
the
my
other day.
God.
Yeah. So it has his little face on it. So you can
Oh
do
my
your yoga
God.
and do your little downward dog with your hands on his face.
Oh my God. Oh God.
So
You know,
anyway,
not all giveaways are good giveaways, I guess.
it's so strange. Unfortunately, it's not a very high quality yoga mat either. But I'm not a high quality yoga doer, so it doesn't really matter. Um,
That's very funny to me.
yeah, no, it's a good one. Okay. So, so the Blazers made no trades, and we haven't even addressed the fact that the Blazers have won. Well, I guess they are now 10 of their last 12 games. Uh,
Yes.
the Blazers have been going on quite a run. The way they've been playing, it almost looks sustainable. So the big question for us to discuss today is what happened to the Development Express? Are we on track? What's going on?
I don't know.
So here's what I want to start with saying. I firmly hope that the Blazers are not going to make the playoffs because if they make the playoffs, they do not get a first round pick in this
Right.
draft. They have to give it away. So I hope that the Blazers, for that reason, I hope that the Blazers don't make the playoffs, which is still a bummer place to be. However, what we've been watching has been so much fun.
I
And I
know.
think the Blazers are going to do what they always do and they're going to shut enough people down that they can safely stay in the lottery, which is what they need to stay lottery bound. It just which what stops are they going to make along the way?
Yeah, so this is a thing that I think about more often than probably most people, which is that picks are players. And that part is not like a revelation or anything, but picks are roster spots. And I'm like, who's not going to be on this team next year when we have picks?
Hmm. Yes, I think that there's room on the roster. There's Wap Reith, great person, but maybe when they get a pick, like they can't do what they've done for the last 3 years leading up to this, what's supposed to be a really good draft, and get nobody.
Yeah,
Like there's a
agree.
difference between getting nobody and getting not
Agree.
number one. Like I am fine if they get 14.
So what this is where I'm going with this. It's that it's a marriage of these two conversations that we're having is like what happened during the trade deadline and now. They don't even know how many picks they're gonna have, right? For this summer.
If they're gonna, well, they don't know if they're going to have a pick this
Yes.
summer.
Sorry, they don't know, right. They don't know how, right. And so like when I look at that team, I'm like, is it worth it to make those moves right
Oh, I
now?
see.
Or do
Okay.
you wait to make those moves this summer when you have
Yes.
more information about
Got
what
it.
you're working with? So your strategy might change around like a trade, like how you're going to prioritize. Are you going to try prioritize making room on your roster? Are you going to prioritize moving money? Like, and I hate thinking about players this way, but like that's how a front office has to think. And why would, if the right trade wasn't here in the trade deadline? Why not wait until you have more information later on? Because it'll help you clarify what you need to do and not
Yeah.
move somebody that you don't need to move or, um, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So you weren't saying you're worried about like where are we going to fit somebody on the roster? You're saying more like we don't even know what the front office is going to be able to do. So making a trade for the sake of making a trade when you don't have all the information about what your draft is going to look like is like maybe foolish unless it's like an absolute home run.
Yeah, and here I'll just lay this out here. Here's my argument about not making any moves at the trade deadline. One, you don't know if you have a pick in the draft or what that pick would be. Two, you don't know who your head coach is going to be next year. Three, you don't know who might become available this summer. Because as we saw during this trade deadline, a ton of people ended up being available that nobody even dreamed would be available. And I mean, maybe it's not going to be anybody that you want, but it might be. And you just don't know. And you also don't know what anybody else's priorities might be this summer too, which is to like, oh, we need like another team might need a roster spot, or another team might need you to facilitate a trade, or another team might need X, Y, or Z. A lot more information is still going to be available, and we don't even know what our coach is going to be. We don't know if we have a pick. Those things matter quite a bit when you're like thinking about building your team for the future. So like, why don't you pick your new coach? Converse with them about what their vision for your team is and how to get the personnel that they think would best fit what they are trying to do. Like I imagine that front offices talk to coaches about this type of thing, and it's not all like the GM's decision about what the roster composition looks like. It's got to be a marriage of like the coach that you bring in, their vision for the team, and then what you guys both perceive to be the right needs and who fills them.
Yeah, and meanwhile, we get to the development does appear to be happening. So
Yes.
we're getting to watch these guys, we're collecting data. We're seeing what these different combinations look like. And it's not like we're not getting any data. So I'm worried about them. I don't think that they're so good. I think they're going to come back down to earth. I think they've hit a sweet spot where everybody that they played wasn't quite ready for them,
Yeah.
and the Blazers were in a way that they have not been able to, were able to attack that. They were able to attack these teams who were not ready and not just squeak by with wins, but like
Hmm.
pounce on them. And that's huge to me is that they've learned how to pounce. So that's like a data point that we've got. Um, but I think there's gonna be an adjustment. This is like how it happens. And as long as they stay the heck out of the playoffs, I'm kind of even worried about them making it the play in
Yeah.
because anything could happen in just, one game. And I don't want to see a bunch of nonsense there. But
But
what,
like,
so go ahead.
we'll see, but there's like a bunch of the other teams that are kind of in the same realm as us. They all like made trades,
Hmm.
like theoretically trying to get better.
Yeah.
Like, and if they did, if those teams did what they were trying to do, theoretically, the competition in our zone got better, and they're trying to go for play-in.
Yeah.
And if we're not explicitly doing that, maybe that sorts itself out on its own.
Yeah. Hopefully we don't have to worry about that because there's plenty of other stuff to watch and enjoy. And that was going to be my question. Like, what is some of the stuff that, like, over this, since the beginning of the year, basically, or since they really got hot, what are some of your favorite things?
I mean, we'll scoot.
Hmm.
I've been really enjoying watching Scoot. I'm marveling every game at how good his shot looks compared to what it started the season looking like. Like at the beginning of the season, I don't know if you remember, Tara, I was like, that shot looks broken.
Uh,
I was like, I am very nervous that he's like not going to be able to shoot. And now it looks like he's been shooting that pull-up three forever.
yeah, so much confidence.
Yes, he does the thing that I like really wish for more guys on this team, which is that as soon as he gets the ball, he knows when if he's shooting it. Like
Hmm.
he doesn't hesitate. I think that for a long time at the beginning of that season, we saw guys just like default to a drive, even if
Hmm.
a drive wasn't open, they were just
Hmm.
like put the ball on the floor, and I'm like, just pull up and shoot it.
Hmm.
Just try it out. And I wanted Tumani to do that, and Tumani is doing that better than he was at the beginning of the season. And Scoot now looks like he's just been making that decision for years.
Yeah.
And I'm shocked at how good it looks. I'm
Yeah.
so thrilled with how good it looks because the possibilities open up if he can shoot that 3 point consistently. And if he doesn't, I think that like is we're seeing kind of in trends around the league, guys who do not have a good three ball have a lower ceiling
Yeah.
just in the modern style.
I think we were kind of prepping for, okay, pass first point guard.
Yeah,
He
totally.
he has, really elite passing ability. He definitely has that really great passing ability. But like, oh, if his shot doesn't come around, but it's like, oh wait, hold on a minute. Here comes the shot.
Yep. And I'm shocked. And I heard that he's working with Kobe White's trainer,
Hmm.
which says a lot, honestly. Because Kobe, I don't know if you watch. I always forget the Bulls exist, except for I remember Kobe White, and for some reason I
Yeah.
forget that he's a Bull. But like he has that
Yeah.
wonderful bouncy hair as he
Yeah.
runs. But like last year he took a huge leap.
Hmm.
Like last year he was incredible, and I thought that he was going to be the most improved player. I think he came in second, but neither here nor there. He improved his game a ton. And
Hmm.
oh boy, Scoot has improved his game a ton, even from like game 1 to game 40, whatever that we're on.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's been like that for me is like number one highlight of this season so far. I mean, beyond Tumani Kamara, who I felt like was on the trajectory to get where he is, but I just didn't think it would be this good this quick.
Hmm. The defense that they're playing is like they're that team now that nobody wants to play. We
Yes.
talked about that earlier. It's like we just want to be the team that everybody's like, ugh, we have to play the Blazers tonight. Ugh. And it's like
Yeah.
they are that team now. And I keep thinking of offensive things because offense is easier for me to see, but I want to like dwell in the defense for a minute because
Hmm.
like I was talking to somebody at the arena the other day about how like one of the games that they recently had, I can't remember, it was whoever was before the Kings, I think, Indiana maybe. I don't know. One of the games that they recently had, they
Pacers,
only
yeah.
they only had like 4 blocks, and we are like, really? Is that right? How can that possibly be right? And then we were like, oh, because like the first block was actually 3 Blazers all at once blocking one player. So every block felt like it was like 3 or 4 blocks. Um, but they're just, they've I've said it before, like not having a red carpet up to the basket is so much fun because it's
Yes.
just always been like, come on down. And now it's like people are like, I don't think I even want to go close to that. Like I think we're gonna do something else because we don't want to even try and get in there.
Yeah, it's like we have shot blockers, which is crazy. And it's not like, so remember for the longest time we were like, why isn't Yusuf Nurkic just a shot blocker? But like, yes, Klingon is a shot blocker. Aiton is, I mean, a little bit of a shot blocker, but it's really like shot block by committee. And
It's
that is really,
Jeremy. It's
oh my God.
Scoot.
I
Shaden.
can I just so I went to the Phoenix Suns game, the first Phoenix Suns game, I should clarify,
Okay.
because we played them twice in a row. And we sat really, really close. I bought tickets kind of last minute, so they were like less expensive than they would normally be. And I brought Audra because she was like wanting to go really badly, and she was wanting to sit closer, because she wasn't able to see very well because well she wears glasses and anyway, it's a whole thing. So point being, we were so close watching Jeremy Grant block Kevin Durant into the ground. It was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And I realized I was like, Jeremy could be a really great, like, he's okay defensively, but I don't think of him as like a defensive anchor or anything like that. And there I was like, dang, where is this Jeremy?
Well, when he's not being tasked with being the head of defense, he can just float around and do those things like that. Like Tumani is like anchoring the defense,
Yeah.
but that allows everybody else to like fly in and do these remarkable things.
I was hooting and hollering when that happened because Kevin Durant got blocked straight onto his back.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then he didn't get up. Like he didn't get up. He barely got back for like the end of the next possession. And it was the most oh,
And I remember that, and it was more like a deflated type of I'm not getting up.
Yes,
as
yes.
opposed to just like, oh, I'm injured. It was just more like,
No.
oh, I hate playing the Blazers now.
Oh, it was like when is the last time the Blazers have been good at defense?
I don't even remember. I think you have to go back a really, really, really long way.
I mean, it was never in the Stotts era, and Stotts was here for like a decade. Like
Hmm.
we didn't like we were never good at defense. It's like there's a bunch of stuff right now that I'm appreciating that we never got a chance to appreciate before, and I had just like blocked that aspect of basketball out of my brain just to be like, that's for other people, it's
Yeah,
not for us.
that's for
Dunks
other
are not
people
for
to
us.
enjoy.
Lobs are not for us. Two-way guards are not for us. Clamp down defense is not for us. And now I'm just trying to enjoy those things while they're here because, like, so we're not winning as much, but we have those things that we haven't had for years
Yeah.
and years.
And we're seeing just the beginning of it too.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I'm excited about. Just a couple more things that I've enjoyed. The way that Shaden can score, like I I was like, is that Michael Jordan out there? Like he had like an under the basket switch hands. I was just like, what's going on?
I
What is
know.
happening?
I just I feel like Shaden has always had like flashes of that.
Hmm.
He just never looks like he cares that much to do it.
Hmm.
Like I want you to want it more. Like I want like if can you imagine if he ran around like Tumani or Denny or someone who's like I want it like
Hmm. Well, it's going to be my take, but that's apparently also something that Coach Phillips wanted him to do is want it more.
oh I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you about that when we get to the
Okay.
take section. So, are we still is I feel like the Development Express is still on track. It's going to stay on the track. It just might be taking a different journey. It might be making different stops
A
than I
detour.
expected.
A detour. But the destination is the same.
Yeah.
When you take a detour, you still are supposed to put people back on the track that they were intended to be on to go to the place that they want to go. You just take a different route.
Everybody still needs to get to Lottery Station.
Yes,
Like
that's right.
we still need to get to Lottery Station. And like in the past, during the second half of the season, we actually weren't getting the development that we wanted
Yes.
because they had to like put in players who were not going to be on the team. So my wish for the second half of the year and my hope for the second half of the year is that we still get to see the players who are going to be on the team play, at least some of them, at least our young guys, at least for most of the rest of the season. Um, because like there's it would be a shame, and I think this is what Cronin said in his thing, is that it would be a shame to take it away right now when they have all this momentum
Yes.
and be like, oh, sorry.
Okay. Yes. Yes to all of that for sure. Two, there are still some things that I would like to see that I am not seeing yet on our Development Express. I'll say I think that there is a point, not where they shut guys down, but they need to be intentional about reducing the minutes of guys that are not in the future.
Hmm.
Jeremy Grant can't play 37 minutes a game. I'm sorry, he can't. Like that's not in service of future winning. If unless they're really thinking he's going to be on this team, like, and I don't know, maybe they've changed their tune about this, but I don't think that it's appropriate for him to be playing 37 minutes a game when he like I mean, I'm trying to think about who else plays this position, right? Who else plays a small or power forward?
Yeah, Denny or Tumani.
Denny or Tumani. You can give those minutes to those guys, and you can feel very confident they're going to be part of this team. They're part of future winning.
Hmm.
Those are very easy
Yeah.
guys to slot in there instead.
I wonder how much of that is like a ripple effect of like the guys that are the young guys who the way you motivate them is by monitoring their minutes. You know what I mean? Um, so maybe that's why Jeremy has been playing so much. I mean, Denny and Tumani are not, but then you have Shaden and you have DeAndre and some of these guys who need a little bit more external motivation to be dialed in the way that everybody else or that some other people aren't. So maybe, yeah, I agree. I think that we need to ramp down Jeremy Grant's minutes. I think that, or they need to ramp down Jeremy Grant's minutes. I'm a little bit worried about how little we see Donovan Clingan, but then every
Yes.
time Donovan Clingan gets out there, I think I don't know if he can handle more than this.
Yeah, you and I have had some side chats not on the podcast about Donovan Clingan because his minutes seem to be going down, which is a little bit alarming. But I will also say that, like, one, he had that injury at the beginning of the season. I think it's good to be careful with him. Two, there's a couple of things that I see about him where I'm like, I can understand why you might be careful with him because big guys get hurt. And when big guys get hurt, they get hurt for longer because
Hmm.
it's just harder to heal. And I wonder if there's a lot of there's some easy things that they can work on this summer that will increase his durability. I said this to you, like not here, but like I think that Donovan Clingan's footwork needs some work. I think that he gets twisted around quite a bit and then he gets in some awkward positions. And like when he struggled against Mason Plumlee when we played the Clippers recently, like I saw Mason Plumlee taking advantage of the fact that Donovan Clingan is not quite as mobile as Mason is.
Hmm.
And also he just didn't have good footwork for getting him for like changing directions with fewer steps. And I'm a little bit nervous because he had that knee injury. And like
Yeah.
if you have like not great footwork and you have a knee injury and you're 7'3", like maybe that's something you need to like work toward before you feel confident increasing minutes for a guy like that.
I think that's really interesting because I actually think he has good footwork, but the problem is it's a little bit too fast for what his body is capable of right now, which is what ends up in him getting twisted around like you're talking about. Because he can move his feet quickly, but I think sometimes he moves them too quickly, and then, like you said, he gets twisted around into a place where he's either gonna, hurt himself or he's unable to do the thing that he was trying to do. Because if you watch his feet, they're quick.
Mm,
It's just that they maybe aren't always uh dancing the right steps.
I think he has potential. I
Yeah,
just think that it's not quite there.
right.
And if it's not quite there and your body's not moving as one, you're far more
Hmm.
likely to get injured,
Hmm.
especially when you're that big. And the other thing, can I say this to you? I thought about this last night and I want to say it to you before I forget.
Okay.
I need Donovan Clingan to remember he's got two hands.
He sometimes does.
He sometimes does, but if I'm 7'3" and I can like we've seen him get 0 points and 20 boards before,
Yeah.
like I want him to want that ball. Because remember how you told me like maybe a month ago that everyone seems to be targeting Donovan Clingan's
Hmm.
hands? You're 7'3" and you bring in both hands and you do it with like intention. It's
Hmm.
a lot harder to get that ball away from you. I
Hmm.
want I want two hands for Mr. Klingan.
Hmm. Hmm.
Big
And
giant two hands.
well, also because we've seen when he does remember, and it's a thing of beauty.
Yes.
Like when he can get those two hands up there and get it or grab it out of somebody else's hands, it's a wonderful thing. So we know we that he can do it. And
Yes.
again, I think that's why they're slow rolling him. I think that's why he has so few minutes. I think he might be a guy that like needs to get out there and be attentive and do everything right with his minutes, or the coach isn't going to put him back in because how that's what motivates him is he wants to play. But if he goes out there and forgets everything that he's supposed to be doing, the coach pulls him back and says, mm-mm, try again next time.
Yeah. I can definitely see that. I mean, I don't know, obviously, but
Well,
like,
yeah, and I think it could change later on in the year. I think it could.
mhm.
I think for the most part, like I think Coach Billups has been so consistent about this, like with the way he talks about how he's been bringing Scoot along, that he doesn't want to throw guys out into a situation where they can't succeed. And Donovan Clingan has had mixed results so far. So he's being very judicious about the minutes that he gets. And at some point, I think when the Blazers are a little bit farther along in the season, then it'll be more like, okay, just go play 20 minutes and see what happens. But I think at this point, he wants to make sure that the minutes that he's in are effective.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of people are like, just throw the young guys in and let them figure it out. And I don't think that's what the coach wants to do. He wants to help them figure it out. He doesn't want to have them figure it out on their own.
Yeah, I'm curious if that's also kind of what's going on with Shaden right now because like they moved Shaden to the
Hmm.
bench. I see like one of the things I paid attention to when we were at the game is recently is that Coach Rogers talks to Shaden a lot.
Mm,
And I was just like thought that was really interesting that he seems to be talking to Shaden a lot direct. Like when he's in the game, I can see like
yeah.
Coach Rogers like talking to him. And I wonder if like now it's time to do some of that like refinement around certain things, certain aspects of these guys' games to focus on like now you're focusing on this thing. Now you're focusing on this one thing because we've seen like the package of your stuff is pretty good, but there's some weaknesses we need to work on to make you like a more complete player.
Hmm.
Um because now like there was a time where it's like Shaden was getting like 15 minutes a game
Hmm.
and now he's playing more like 30 or something. And he's still coming off the bench and I don't know. Like I don't know exactly what they're doing, but it seems like they're working on certain aspects of certain guys' games at this point. And remember, I told you like maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago that I thought that Scoot was being coached differently.
Hmm.
Now I feel that a little bit of a way about that about Shaden.
Well, I agree, and I also have noticed they've been putting Shaden and Scoot in together at the same time, and I think that's what development is.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, and they happen to be winning. Um, but also there's a lot of I think there is a lot of development going on, I guess. I think in the last couple years we've wondered, or even at the beginning of the season, we've been wondering, is any they have too many vets on the team. I don't know if there's a development happening. And I think even now with vets on the team, there is development happening, I guess is what I'll say.
Yeah. I think I agree with that. It was like maybe slower than people would have liked. I'll say some of it felt slower than I would have liked.
Hmm.
I really thought that we would see more minutes for these guys or more consistently more minutes. Um, but I'm not complaining because I know they're still getting better. If I
Hmm.
didn't think they were getting better, I would like I would have a bigger gripe, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Hmm.
This is purely a hypothetical out there that I've been thinking about. I've seen Scoot posting a little bit more on social.
Mm.
He's, shares like game highlights and stuff like that.
Mm.
And then he also posted a picture recently of him and DeAndre Ayton like together, like celebrating or something. And I was like, what happens if Scoot and DeAndre get really good chemistry? Because I think that I can see some of it in the game. And I'll say DeAndre is more suited to Scoot's game than Donovan Clingan is.
Hmm.
What happens if they develop really good chemistry? A lot of people are saying, "Oh, I don't think that DeAndre Ayton is part of the long-term plan." But what if he is? Do you
I
think it's
don't
possible?
I absolutely think it's possible, and I don't think we need to worry about it because we have 2 more years of DeAndre Ayton's contract, and that way they can get away with doing this slow development of Donovan Clingan. I think
Yeah,
it's a good situation. I also happen to think that DeAndre has really excellent chemistry with Anthony.
yeah,
So I think that they're not in a hurry, and this will allow, like I said, that slow development of Donovan, who is very young. Centers, historically, I've heard anecdotally take a long time to develop. Um,
yeah,
I'm fine with that actually. If Scoot and DeAndre end up playing a lot together and Donovan Clingan is coming off the bench, I don't think they need to throw him in there. It's hard. I will say though, I will say that I do have a lot of jealousy to like the Grizzlies who are playing Zach Edey all the time and he's making a big splash and everybody knows how great Zach Edey is as a rookie and I'm like, why can't we have that? So I do feel that kind of jealousy, which is dumb, I will admit. But then I remind myself that like we don't have to rush Donovan Clingan out there, and I don't think he's the kind that you want to rush either
yeah,
necessarily.
yeah. He's super young.
Hmm.
He backed up in college. Like he's not even like a one of those guys that you traditionally see come out and then just
Yeah.
like Zach Collins. We did the same thing with Zach Collins. Like Zach Collins was a backup in college, and then we brought him to the Blazers, and it took him a little time to
Hmm.
become like a guy that's found his place in the league. And the other thing I'll say about Donovan Clingan is that, and this has been clear to me more so in the last couple months as the Blazers have figured out more of an identity. I don't think he's playable in all lineups. I think that he is a situational big, and you need someone who's complementary to his skill set. And right now, DeAndre Ayton is a pretty good complement to Klingen's skill set. You need a center who can run the way that DeAndre Ayton can run, and who moves who can move out to the perimeter and feel a little bit more comfortable.
Hmm.
That's not his game.
And who has a mid range because
Yeah, that's
Donovan
true.
has struggled to score. So I'm fine. And who knows? They could get a different coach next year whose philosophy is throw them all in and see what happens.
It's
So
true.
I could be just talking myself into this because that's the way it is, and I either can live with it or hate it, and so I'm gonna choose to live with it. And then
Hmm.
next season we could see something completely different.
Yeah.
Should we move on to takes because we've been
Yeah.
talking for a little bit?
Yes. I think that this is the right time for takes because there's nothing more we can say about stuff we don't know.
Right. Exactly. We can opine about it, but at some point you just got to cut it off.
So
Okay.
it's Super Bowl Sunday, February 9th, 2025. We don't know who's playing in the Super Bowl, and we know it's definitely not happening on a Saturday, and that is all we know. What's your take?
Okay, so this take was inspired by the article that was written by Jason Quick that was in The Athletic about the four important meetings that Coach Billups held with his players.
Right?
And one of the things that he talked about was the coach was watching a game, watching Golden State play, and non-Blazer cutie Gary Payton missed a defensive assignment, and two of his teammates barked at him, got on him right in the middle of the game. So, A, let's just love the part that he missed a defensive assignment, who's supposed to be the best defender ever. Anyway, Gary Payton missed this, and his teammates immediately called him out in the middle of the game. And that inspired Coach Billups to ask his players, do you guys do you feel comfortable if your teammate called you out? How would you like that? And they all agreed that they would like to be called out in the middle of the game. And that was apparently like a big turning point that led to their improved play and them being able to like really hold each other accountable on the floor for all of that. And he showed everybody this play, Gary Payton missing a defensive assignment. If the Blazers continue to develop and have these winning ways and show so much promise, and it's because of this, ability to call each other out on the floor. Should Gary Payton II be nominated for Blazer Legend?
I knew that's where this was going. As soon as I heard the setup, I was like, "Oh my God, we're gonna nominate him for Blazer Legend."
I'm just putting it out there. We don't need to decide today, but that's where my mind is. I think it's worth considering. We don't have to
Can
make
we
the
put a pin
decision
in that
now.
one? We'll put a pin. Let's ask the listeners.
We
Let's
could
ask the listeners what they think.
I think we could say we could say that Gary Payton's missed defensive assignment is the Blazer legend, maybe.
Okay, but didn't we decide that Blazer Legend usually has to, it's usually about something that happens after the player has left the team?
Yeah, Gary Payton's not on the team anymore.
I know, but he blew that assignment when he was on the team. It wasn't like he blew it like playing us or something.
No, but like he made that mistake this year after he was on the team, and that's what inspired these guys. So
Okay.
my take is that we should consider it.
Okay.
And I know might not be popular. I told
Let's
you it was going to be controversial when
we'll
we
put a pin in
started.
that one.
I said last week when I said that Jeremy Grant wasn't like the most well dressed, maybe that was controversial. This I think is probably truly controversial.
Yeah, I think that that's something we need to get our listeners to weigh in on whether Gary Payton is even eligible to be nominated for a Blazer Legend when he definitely can't be a Blazer cutie.
That's true. Okay, well, listeners, let us know what you think. And
Let us know what you think.
Rose, what's your take?
Here's my take. So everything was trade deadline, this, whatever, this like in all NBA media for like the last like couple weeks. It's and rightfully so, it was a bonanza. It was like fire sales on top of grand openings, on top of more fire sales, and it was a huge mess. Here is my take. I watched all of this transpire, And then at the end of it all, everybody still wanted to put out letter grades for teams. My take is this: letter grades for trade deadline performance are stupid. Anybody putting out a letter grade for a trade deadline performance is stupid, and you should feel bad about yourself because it's a dumb way to look at what happens around trade deadlines, especially because letter grades in life are bad. It's a way to boil somebody down to one thing so you don't have to engage with the hues of gray in between. And we know that everything is more complex than that. We hated getting graded as children. I hated getting graded all the way into adulthood as I was doing my master's degree. Grades are sucky. Stop letter grading people's trade deadline performances. Nobody is showing their work. When you grade a test as a teacher, you partially what you're grading is the thought process and people showing their work. Nobody is showing their work in the NBA. So stop grading them with letters. Engage in the grades with the rest of us and just appreciate it as it comes in. And you can pontificate here and pontificate there, but miss me with your letter grades. Stop it.
Just letter grades entirely. Okay,
Letter
so
grades entirely. It's a bad system and it's especially bad for this thing. Stop proliferating that system that was already bad to begin with into other areas where it doesn't belong.
so you're basically just like pouring syrup into the engine of the NBA media.
That's right. Stop with your letter grades, all of you. You don't
How are they going to talk about it?
with words, tons of them. You all have them. I hear them all the time. I read them. I listen to them. You all have the words. Just use those. Stop it with the letter grades.
I love it. I could not agree more. Also, not a fan of grades, really, of any kind. I also am not a fan of requiring everybody to read 20 minutes a night so that they can get a sticker or a gold star. I have a lot of takes that are similar to all of that.
Well,
Don't come at me with gold stars.
and this take comes to you directly from a conversation that I had with my daughter, who likes to ask big questions right before bedtime, because that's how children are. And she's like, Mom, I heard that they grade you with letters when you get to high school. And she was really nervous about this. And I was like, Girl, one, you are 8 years old. High school is very far away. And two, letter grades don't matter. I will not be upset with you about a letter grade because all I want you to do is to do the best you can do to learn the things that you need to do that you can be successful and care for yourself and other people in life and do good things. The letter grade doesn't matter. So I'm here to tell all of you the same thing I told to her. Letter grades don't matter, especially when you don't see what the work is that goes into getting that grade.
Amen. Let's stop right there because you said it so perfectly. Everybody's gonna like sign up for like, we want Rose to be our mom.
They certainly don't.
Wait, okay, so don't they get laid letter grades in like middle school and elementary school as well? Do they not do that anymore?
I don't see letter grades in elementary school. I
Okay.
can't speak to middle school because I haven't been in middle school since the
Hmm.
90s.
Yeah. Yeah, we used to get them all throughout. Anyway,
I did get them in middle school, but like, I think that it was just like mystifying because she was like, I don't get grade. Like,
yeah.
in elementary school, you don't get grades. And if you do get grades, your parents get them. And I don't talk about those with her.
Hmm.
Like, you know what I do? I read the little like write up of comments that I get from her teachers that tell me how she's doing and the things she's good at and the things that we need to work on. Those are the things that I care about, the nuanced things, not the letter grade that they gave at the end of it all.
Yeah, and think about how much more time teachers would have if they didn't have to worry about that part of it. I mean, hardest part is to write the summary anyway. Like, just take away like having to do grades anyway. Like, the teachers already are doing too much. Just let them write the summary, leave the grades out. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
I love it. Okay, well, let's wrap it up. Thank you everyone for listening. Okay, what have we asked listeners to give us feedback on? About the whether or not Gary Payton could be allowed to be nominated as a Blazer legend. If we missed any other Blazer cuties who changed teams. I don't know if there's anything else that we were anyway. They've listened, they've written down, they've taken notes, I'm sure. All the things we're asking for him. Thank you everyone for listening today. It's been so great to talk to you, Rose. Folks who want to find us, you can find Rose L. Harding on Blue Sky or TCB Biggs on Blue Sky. And you can have We Have a Take at We Have a Take on Blue Sky. We're also like out there on Instagram and stuff, but most of our stuff goes out through Blue Sky right now. Thank you so much for listening and go Blazers.